Dale is feverishly trying to get our streaming going. So
yeah, Dale says we're live on YouTube. I'm not seeing it mirrored on my end.
that's different.
Bob, can you pop in on the YouTube feed and make sure that we're good there?
I forgot the go button.
Oh, okay.
It should be happy now.
Yeah, okay. Live. There we are. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. Few minutes behind the clock, but it's all right. Thank you for joining us on this not exactly astronomically auspicious Thursday night for the virtual Macomb meeting. If you have doggies, puppies, kittens, or cockatoos in the background, please mute. Like to call the meeting to order. As president, I have the sad news to report for those of you who've not seen it already that previous WASP president and our speaker from the annual banquet several years back, not to mention a major Michigan member of the astronomical community, Fast Mike Simonson, formerly of the AAVSO, passed away suddenly at the age of 62. I do not yet have any details on the memorial, etc., but suffice to say that he was a major contributor of the WAS amateur community to professional astronomy. And yeah, it was rather shocking. So last I had seen, he was posting about his new kitten, and then we get the news from through Gary Ross that he had died. So that's unfortunate. And as soon as we get additional information, we will let you all know. In the meantime, if you are active on Facebook, his wife is currently managing, or widow is managing his account. So if you are friends or what have you and haven't, interacted with him on Facebook in a while, feel free to offer condolences via that method while we wait to see, what the memorial plans, etc. will be. So big loss, and well, life's short. Keep looking up. On a happier note, we are proceeding apace with the plans to have the picnic. So we hashed out the duties of our officers at the board meeting last week. And we will be, proceeding with plans for a picnic, barring an uptick in the Delta variant that forces everybody, please mute. Who's got something going? It's loud. Okay. Unless we have an uptick in the Delta variant, such as has caused the city of Los Angeles to return to its masking mandate, even for the vaccinated, because it is a bad thing that affects young people very hard. And of course, our mission involves outreach to children who are not yet vaccinated. So, barring a major change in that, we are having that picnic and we hope to see you all there. We also encourage you to bring stuff for a swap meet. So we've all had a lot of pent-up time to decide what we want and don't want in our collection. And the sister of our late lamented member, Pat Brown, will be bringing items from his collection. So we definitely want to have a swap meet there by the pavilion. Bring your stuff and I guess your checkbook. So I don't know that everybody accepts Square. Okay. With that, I'd like to pass things to our first Vice President, Dr. Dale Parton.
Okay, thank you, Diane. At our next meeting on August the 2nd, I will be the main speaker. My topic will be exploring the Galilean moons. The short presentation will be given by Bob Tremblay. His topic will be, what makes you say wow when it comes to astronomy? Then a month from now, on August the 19th, Matt Dietrich will be our main speaker. He works for Plane Wave Instruments, a company that makes telescopes near Ann Arbor, Michigan. His topic will be Plane Wave Instruments, exploring their astronomical offerings and some related things. Beyond that, I'm always looking for speakers. If you have an idea for something you'd like to present on, it could be a full hour or it could be something shorter, please let me know. Incidentally, I'm thinking of putting together a group of about 4 speakers in place of an hour-long talk early next year, giving people an opportunity to talk about what were some of your earliest astronomical experiences that got you into this hobby. So if you would like to contribute to that, please let me know. And with that, Diane, back to you.
All right, thank you. And Second Vice President, Observatory Chair, Riyad Mahdi.
Thank you, Diane. Hello, everyone. I visited the observatory on June 19th. Everything is in good shape. All the equipment, both buildings are fine. Did a little bit of cleanup too, and trying to get ready a little bit for our August 28th open house and picnic. So hopefully we'll see everyone there. During the picnic, one thing I would recommend is please bring a mask with you. And if you can wear it, go ahead and wear it. But you don't have to. More than likely, you wouldn't have to. But since we may have some kids around, it may be a good idea. Some kids who are not in the age where they can be vaccinated, may be a good idea to have one with you. And you know, if you get in contact with children, please then wear it. Other than that, the next open house for this month is July 24th. And as you know, we've been using Doug Boggs Observatory, the North Cross Observatory virtual meeting to do our open houses during COVID. So if Doug is available again, then we will be doing that again on July 24th. And hopefully we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Riyad, and thank you for the reminder about bringing the mask so that you do have the opportunity to wear it, especially if you're in the observatory with kids, and also if you wish to help us with food prep, it will be mandatory in that case. Okay, so Secretary Mark Kadzier, who wrote us a lovely letter to do something kind of exciting with Warren Public Library that I would like him to talk about if he so chooses.
Would you like me to talk about it?
Yes, please.
All
You've
right,
got
okay.
the eloquence to do so.
Okay, my report. First of all, I have my mask ready for the picnic. Been practicing on my grilling skills. I have charcoal, lighter fluid, and a road flare to make sure it starts up so we can have that food cooked really good. Okay. The letter I composed on behalf of the board, the WASP board, has to do with we got a request from Lisa Martin of the Warren Public Library, and she is applying for a NASA at My Library grant. Only 60 libraries in the United States will be selected for this grant. The program, I believe, will last 1 year from September to September, and the Warren and they needed a partner organization, so the Warren Astronomical Society will lend a hand in promoting this event for them by providing some type of program or educational outreach. for the library as part of the requirements of this grant. And they get a substantial sum of money to provide all the materials. And I think it's a great, exciting time, having the Warren Astronomical Society, basically based here in Warren, chance to get involved with the library system in Warren and possibly see how far we can go in our outreach activities with them. Warren has some pretty nice facilities in the libraries. The main library is in the Warren City Hall, and so I know they host a lot of events right there. So the possibilities are endless, and we got someone that's affiliated with a lot of NASA programs, such as our outreach chair, Mr. Bob T. I'm sure we would be very successful in implementing this program with them if they are selected. It's very highly competitive, so I'm on the positive side. Hopefully that this will work out for us right there. So anyway, that's my report on that, and we'll see what happens. I guess they start the selection process or reviewing the applications on July 19th. I guess NASA needed a little breather. I guess they had to take a furlough and then come back and look at all the applications. So we will start seeing the ball roll on July 19th, and hopefully we have some positive news on that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Mark. Adrian at Treasury from the road.
If this would unmute, I'm actually pulling over to be safe. If it'll start. All right, I'm at a standstill. I don't know if okay, there's my video. All of that just to tell you that there's nothing new to report. I haven't seen any activity in our account, so they're holding steady at around 600 PayPal, 22,800 for our main account, and GLAC as of yet has not moved to move any money, so they're still at 3,200 in the GLAC account. And a quick note, speaking of GLAC, and because I know Bob wasn't able to make our meeting, we did decide to do astronomy at the beach outdoors. We weren't looking to have any speakers. It was going to be a bare bones telescope, masked, and social distanced event. That's where we're standing right now. And the plan is to continue to watch to see if there's a continued decline in cases, spread, deaths, things like that. But as of now, the event will be held outdoors at Island Lake Recreational Area on the September 24th and 25th. And our next step is going to be to get volunteers that are okay with bringing telescopes to the event, whether they have protections for their eyepieces and whether they have protections for or projections of what's on their telescope, however they want to do it, or if they feel comfortable sharing their eyepieces with the public. So we have some things to iron out, but as of now, we are planning to have an outdoor event. So kind of a double update. And that's it for me. Any questions about GLAC, you can send to me if you have more questions about our decision there. Treasury decision questions, Astronomical League memberships, you can talk to me, treasurer@warrenastro.org, and I'll put on a different hat and talk to you about that. So that's it, and that's my report.
Thank you, Adrian. And thank you for filling us in on GLAC, because Adrian, of course, wears multiple hats as the president of GLAC. And on the outreach front, we've next got on deck Bob Tremblay at Outreach.
Okay. Yeah, I talked with Brian Ottum, who was presenting tonight, this morning. I'm going to be updating the website for GLAC, announcing what we're doing, that we're having an in-person event, and I'm also going to be creating a Facebook event on the GLAC page with that. He also sent me a huge list of library contacts that we're going to be contacting. I'm going to be contacting them and just, reminding them that, hey, there's a whole bunch of people out here who can give lectures at your libraries. Just poke them again because it's been a while. So I actually got an interesting phone call from a fellow yesterday. He Mark Musen. We gave a presentation to the WASP a couple of years ago about Starbase One. He's now working at the Macomb Intermediate School District where my wife works. He's working in STEM there, and they're doing something called Little Inventors, and this year's theme is space. And they would like the Warren Astronomical Society to essentially just be a yay rah of them. I said, we'll support them a little bit. He said, if you can host an astronomy night. And I said, we do that anyway. He says, right. So anyway, what they're going to be doing is it's for fourth graders. They come up with an idea and it's going to be related to space. And they present these ideas to some team who vets them. He says he might want some of us to vet them. And what these ideas, the winners, they go out to manufacturing in the area and they build these things either virtually in 3D CAD or 3D print or metal print them. So I've got just a little information from him. He was going to send me some what we would be involved with, but I haven't gotten that text yet. So that's interesting thing for next year. Other than that, let's see, libraries, that. GLAC. So that's about it. Yikes.
Thank you, Bob. And last but definitely not least, our Florida correspondent and meeting host, Dale Theme.
Well, the WASP, the award-winning WASP is up and working on the next month's issue and trying to keep up the high standards we now seem to be needing to keep up, prove ourselves worthy of the award. Meanwhile, I'm just busy working all this stuff behind the scenes for this stream feed, so I'm going to shut up now.
All right, thank you, Dale. So we've got you'll be seeing a few more words shortly, I do believe. Okay, reports. So Solar Marty is not on tonight. I have not had the chance to look at the sun. What sun? There's nothing but haze in the sky. If somebody could throw up a Soho image, I think Bob's on it. Excellent. There's your sun. Double star group. Riyadh, back in
Yeah.
action at the picnic, right?
Yes, exactly. I'll have my usual list of deep sky, or actually double stars objects to look at, and we'll go chasing after a few of them, hopefully.
Sounds wonderful. Astronomical League, that would be Adrian now.
Yep, nothing new to report directly. Oh, you know what? I do have something to report.
Yes,
and
please.
that is the Astronomical League conference is coming up. I need to firm the dates because I believe it is in 2 weeks. It is free if you would like to register because it will be a virtual event. And our own David Levy is one of the presenters at the Astronomical League conference. So I will gather more information, and then those of you that don't want to wait on me can go to the Astronomical League's Facebook page and the Astronomical League site. A Google search for Astronomical League will probably get you there because that's what I'm going to do. I will send, I will look up later on tonight and send some information in chat once I find it for contacting Astronomical League and registering for the conference. Again, the conference is free to all who attend. The Global Star Party that I'm a part of, the Astronomical League tends to host it and gives away door prizes, which includes Explore Scientific gear, other astronomy items. Those of you that attend those global star parties, they're every Tuesday, and you can find it on explorescientific.com's website. If you attend those, you can answer a few questions that they pose, and they will put you in the running for drawing for one of those items. And one thing that the Astronomical League always does, never look at the sun directly. If you're going to look at the sun, use approved protective gear. Looking at the sun when it's low on the horizon can even be a dangerous thing. So as the Astronomical League always tells us, please be careful when looking at the sun. So with that, that's the astronomical report.
Thank you, Adrian. Astrophotography. I don't see Mr. Bill Beers on the line. Is he here? Oh well. The adventures of the astronomical, the astrophotography cohort have been somewhat foiled by the horrific wildfire smoke coming from the horrific wildfires out west. This has not been a good year for a lot of people throughout the country. So, say your prayers and thoughts for our friends and Canadian buddies out west where the wildfires are, and then the sky might clear up so we can have some good pictures again. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna quickly jot in as someone who's been doing. I'll put on another hat, the astrophotography hat, and I can tell you that sunsets are going to be marked with the smoke. It's going to make sunsets a little bit redder. So get out and see sunrises and sunsets. And you can do some astrophotography, but it'll take longer exposures and it'll take more exposures to get data. It's basically like shooting through a hazy sky. I think our smoke index is not as bad as it was the first time, maybe a couple of weeks ago, right before new moon. So it's not as bad, but it's still hazy. It's not perfect by any means. So just to add on to that.
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, sunsets when we can see them should be remarkable. I saw one myself last week driving home along I-94, and it was, or 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty dramatic with all the orange and peach. Okie dokie. Other special interest groups, librarian. If anybody would like to be our librarian, we don't yet have a permanent home for the library. We do intend to be showcasing things at Stargate. We would like to, now that we can return to operations at Stargate, go resurrect our plan to have a little free library there on the grounds. So that'll be something that we will be talking about for the second part of the year. And merch, same deal. As we ease back into in-person events, Jonathan would really appreciate if somebody else would take over selling the fundanas, stickers, pins, and whatnot. And take control of the battered black and white carpet bag that used to be a fixture of our meetings. Again, start thinking about hosting discussion groups at your home or place of employ. And start thinking about where you want to be in a snack rotation as we move ever so slowly towards in-person meetings again. Any other special interest groups with something to report before we move on to observing? Okay, there is one special interest group, which is the Board of Officers. We are halfway through the year. Some of our members are term limited out. Some others are, yes, our outreach chair par excellence, Bob Tremblay, has had 3 absolutely brutal and bizarre years as outreach chair. Gone from feast to famine and apocalypse and everything else in his tenure. And he is constitutionally taking a well-deserved break from that position after this year. If there is a position that you've got your eye on, do you like outreach? Do let us know or let the board member in question know, so that we can set you up with the information that you need, job shadowing, what have you, because it's been a hard couple of years. And while I know that our Secretary Mark Kedzier is quite happy to serve for another excellent year, a couple members who might not be term limited out might need a break. So, especially after we get back on track with picnics and open houses and set everything on a good footing for 2022. So, just putting that out there. We have elections in November. All right, let's move on to observing reports. Raise your hand. David Levy's got both hands up. David, you go first.
Okay, thank you all. My big report that I have to make is yesterday's observation of the sun. It was observing session number 22,287 S2. There was one group of sunspots containing 6 small spots, but the reason that this was a red letter session for me was that I counted 25 prominences around the sun. The sun looked like a golden ring. It was just magnificent. It's not a record for everyone by any means, but I've never seen 25 sunspots. I mean, 25 prominences around the sun before. And it was really, I was just counting them all over. Some were fat and faint, some were skinny and bright, some were small, it was just every type of prominence. It was absolutely magnificent. And now for my quote of the meeting. I'm going to quote from Andrea Delgado by Robert Browning, and he talks about Mount Morello, this lovely mountain north of Florence in Italy. And this is my baseball game quotation, because the first 4 lines, really nothing much happens. He's talking about the mountain and everything. And then in the final 2 lines, he hits a home run, the crowd goes wild, and that's how it ends. And here goes. Morello's outline there is wrongly traced. Is Hugh mistaken? What of that? Or else, rightly traced and well ordered, what of that? Speak as they please. What does the mountain care? Ah, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, David. Who else has an observing report of something other than clouds and spectacular? Doug Bach has joined us. Doug, what you got?
Okay, yeah, the
Purple
weather.
cats.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes. I love your
Okay.
cats.
Yeah, my wife loves them too. I hate cats though, you know that, right? My wife won't let me get away with that. But anyhow, yeah, it's been a little bit of a dry spell for imaging this month, but my last time I was out was 2 weeks ago on the night of the 1st and 2nd of July, using a new camera I just picked up, a ASI 2600 one-shot color camera. So I just took a couple of shots with that. This is the Fireworks Galaxy NGC 6946 that night through the 10-inch with that new camera. And this is just over 3 hours of integrated data. So that turned out pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. And at the same time, I'm running, this is a plate solve for it with the various objects that are in there. But at the same time, see if I can get to it. Oh, yeah, no, this is it. Okay. At the same time, I was running the 300 millimeter f4 prime lens, Canon lens that I bought off of Adrian with my 071 camera at the same time. And this object is the NGC 6946, the Fireworks Galaxy, in there as well. And the other object here is this cluster 6939. Plus, there's a bunch of PGCs in this field of view. And this field of view is fairly wide. It's like 4 by 3 degrees. So that combination of running this primary like this and this secondary system at the same time is going to allow me to double up some acquisition for doing wider field work. I'd like to use this 300 millimeter to do some comet hunting and asteroid work as well. So it's going to work out pretty good. And then I think one more thing I had was this is last month, so I'll skip this. But anyhow, this is M52, and this is the bubble nebula here with the wide field, along with a couple others. So that's all I have for this month.
Thank you, Doug. And I'm showing you my cat.
Yeah, there you go.
I have an observatory report.
Dale Hollenbaugh has his hand up.
Yeah. So, I really only got a chance to go out for one session. Well, I'm going to call it a session. It's 3 nights. I imaged 3 nights in the last month since I got back from vacation. Share content. All right. And I imaged the Iris Nebula.
Beautiful.
So this is 3 nights. I think I saved about 12 hours worth of data. I was trying to get those clouds. So here's more of a raw image before I started stretching it, which in some ways I kind of like this as well. It's a little bit of light pollution, but it's more natural. So that's what 3 nights will get you if you want to see some of the dark dust around that nebula, which is an interesting target. So that's all I got.
That's a good one. Who else? Y'all are doing sterling work in spite of the challenging conditions?
So I've got a couple images that I can share.
Proceed.
Okay. Allow access to all photos. An example of what happens to sunset when there's a problem with the file. That's great. Well, I guess I won't be sharing that one. Let's try a different one. Okay, interesting. I can't seem to share anything. Well, sharing doesn't seem to be working for me, but as far as observing, I'll just have to recall what I saw. I took a trip to the Thumb and got a chance finally to see the night sky after the night sky opened up. So I took some Milky Way photos, and the one thing that stood out for me was seeing the entire arc of the Milky Way go through Cassiopeia and down close to the horizon on Lake Huron. It didn't quite get all the way down there as some of the Canadian lights were shining in the distance, and the Milky Way disappeared before it got to the bottom of or before it got to the horizon on the lake. So that was an interesting sight. Also, was able to see Jupiter cast a shadow on the lake, and I'm desperately trying to share one of those images because quite a thing to see. But yeah, it's not opening my file. I've tried a few times, so I guess sharing on the iPhone isn't working. But you see Jupiter and you see Saturn, and when Jupiter is low to the horizon, the light off of Jupiter is reflecting in Lake Huron. That was a very interesting sight, and I did go ahead and image that, and so I have a picture that I'll have to try and share later on tonight, or afterwards. You can, if you follow my Facebook page or Instagram page, you can see it there. 'Cause I think I posted it to a couple of those places. So it was nice to see the stars again, and then to hear that. And also beforehand, I took a lot of pictures of sunsets, and you see the sun with its color. But then, so when I hear that the smoke was coming back, well, at least the moon was coming out, so a lot of there'd be a lot of bright light in the sky anyhow. So hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, this batch of smoke goes away, and we'll all get to view the night sky, image, do what we want to do. We'll see what happens. But that's my report.
All right, I have a question for you, Adrian, because Solar Marty and I had a running dialogue some years back on whether or not one could see the detail in Jupiter's reflection on the lake. So what level of detail were you able to see or image?
All that I saw, it's a bright, without looking at Jupiter through a telescope, it just appears as just a very bright star. But you could definitely see the reflection coming from Jupiter itself. It was it wasn't mistakable as a reflection from any other light. So all I could see was just the brightness of Jupiter and the reflection. And the reflection took me back. I was like, wait, it's bright enough to cast a reflection. The planet's light is some, a few light minutes or light hours away, and yet it's casting a reflection on this lake. So unfortunately, I didn't look at it through a telescope to see what kind of detail I could see at the time. That would have been a good idea. I would have needed to have brought at least a spotting scope so that I could take a look.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just have to try it for myself one of these days when I'm back up at Lake Huron. Do we have any other observing reports before we move to the news? Going once, going twice. I don't see any hands, so news update from our award-winning publications chair. Take it away, Dale. You may also be muted.
Okay. Try that again.
All right, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, then. In the news for July 15th, 2021, I'm assuming today's July 15th. I've lost track. And that went crazy. Okay. The Solar Sailing CubeSat is one of several secondary payloads hitching a ride on Artemis 1, the first integrated flight of the agency's SLS and Orion spacecraft. NEA Scout, a small spacecraft roughly the size of a large shoebox, has been packaged into a dispenser and attached to the adapter ring that connects the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft. The Artemis program offers deep space transportation for several CubeSats, enabling opportunities for small spacecraft like NEA Scout to reach the moon and beyond. Now, the NEA Scout will be America's first interplanetary mission using solar sail propulsion, says Les Johnson, the principal technology investigator for the mission at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. He goes on, there have been several sail tests in Earth orbit, and we are now ready to show that we can use this new type of spacecraft propulsion to go to new places and perform important science. Now, a series of videos from China's Mars rover have been released by the China National Space Administration including incredible footage showing 23 seconds of the rover's perilous descent to the surface. The eclipse, published on 27th of June, almost halfway through Zhang's 3-month mission, represent a terrific bunch of data, says David Flannery, an astrobiologist at Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane, Australia, who was part of the team working on NASA's Perseverance Mars rover. Flannery argues that it might be possible to use microphone data from both rovers to compare the wind patterns in 2 regions of Mars. Zhang is in the Utopia Planitia region of Mars' northern hemisphere, whereas Perseverance is several hundred kilometers away in the Jezero crater. Furthermore, the Chinese team might find the microphone useful for troubleshooting engineering problems that emerge with the rover, as NASA engineers also hope to do in the event of a problem, he says. Led by members of the NASA Sea Level Change team from the University of Hawaii, the study says that high tide flooding could happen more frequently on several U.S. coasts. Flooding at high tide often causes nuisance flooding, already occurs with regularity in many coastal communities as water routinely sloshes into streets, yards, and businesses. 2 factors could converge to worsen flooding at high tide, the study says: rising sea levels fueled by climate change, and the moon. The moon is about to wobble. The moon's orbit is due for its regular wobble. That is entirely natural, NASA says, and it has been recorded as far back as 1728. Half of the moon's 18.6-year cycle creates lower high tides and higher low tides. The other, the one we're looking for, creates higher high tides and even lower low tides. But NASA says global sea level rise will likely push those high tides higher. And one of the study's co-authors, NASA Sea Level Change team leader Ben Hamilton, said that because waters will be higher, this moon cycle could have a much more dramatic effect. High tides already exceed known flooding thresholds around the United States. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported continued record-setting high tide or sunny day flooding in 2019. But the study shows that high tides will exceed flooding thresholds more often. Floods, the study predicts, could also start occurring in clusters that last a month or longer, depending on how the sun, moon, and Earth are positioned, according to NASA. Now, the problem started on June 13th, when an onboard computer suddenly ground to a halt. All science instruments on Hubble went to safe mode as a result, and it's been that way ever since. The telescope is otherwise fine, but normal operations have been suspended. The problem is with the payload computer, which controls and monitors Hubble's science instruments. It's the most serious glitch to afflict Hubble in years, raising concerns that the aging telescope might finally be finished. Launched in 1990, Hubble has conducted over 1.5 million observations and contributed significantly to our understanding of the solar system, galaxies, and the universe in general. The Hubble recovery team has tried all sorts of tests over the past few weeks. Data collected has now led the team to determine that the possible cause of the glitch has something to do with the power control unit located on the telescope science instrument command and data handling unit. The power control unit supplies electricity to the payload computer and provides a steady 5 volts of electricity to both the payload computer and its memory modules. A secondary protection circuit senses the voltage levels leaving the power regulator. If the voltage falls below or exceeds allowable levels, this secondary circuit tells the payload computer that it should cease operations. The team's analysis suggests that either the voltage level from the regulator is outside of acceptable levels, thereby tripping the secondary protection circuit, or the secondary protection circuit has degraded over time and is stuck in this inhibit state. Now, commands to reset the PCU haven't worked, so it's probably borked. In response, NASA management has approved a plan to switch over to backup hardware. This rescue operation is scheduled to start, and it could take a few days to complete. The billionaire Richard Branson went 53.5 miles into the sky on Sunday, short of the Kármán line, which is 62 miles above sea level and where it is generally agreed that space begins. NASA gives out astronaut wings above 50 miles, and Branson barely cleared that. There is officially no American government definition for when space begins, apparently in large part because the government does not want to define it, because it could possibly change with technological developments. But let's accept the 50-mile rule for argument's sake anyway, and say that Branson was indeed in space, where he spent about a minute and a half before falling back to Earth, which is the functional equivalent of having a layover at JFK and then claiming you've been to New York City. That might technically be true, but simultaneously be complete hogwash. Instead, Eric Schilling, writer of this article, proposes a simple, achievable definition of going to space, which is that you must orbit the Earth at least once while you're up there, something that Branson did not do. And while this might leave Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom out of the Sky Bunch or Space Bunch, in their day, there weren't weirdo billionaires engaged in pointless space races. Also, crucially, the US and Soviet Union weren't trying to sell anything beyond their own superiority, whereas Branson would be very pleased if you got in line and paid him $250,000 or more to take his amusement park ride. The best thing you can say about Branson or anyone else that takes the space plane to suborbital skies is that they have the courage to strap themselves to a rocket, which isn't nothing. In the sky for July 15, 2021. It's a good time to look up. One of the year's most spectacular sky watching shows, the annual Perseid meteor shower, is back to light up the night sky. The Perseid meteor shower peaks in mid-August when up to 100 meteors can be seen per hour. But the celestial event will be active beginning Wednesday, which means the shooting stars may be visible on clear nights starting this week. The Perseids are considered the best meteor shower of the year. Let's see if they live up to that height. The best way to view the Perseids is to head out in the pre-dawn hours, though some meteors may be visible earlier from 10 p.m. onward. Meteor showers are best viewed from places that are away from the city lights, as light pollution can drown out the shooting stars. The Perseid meteor shower is called that because the shooting stars appear to stream from a point in the sky where the constellation of Perseus is located. While the constellation is not the source of meteors, it can help sky watchers figure out where to look. The Perseid meteor shower occurs every year from about mid-July to late August as Earth passes through a cloud of dust particles and debris from a comet known as 109P Swift-Tuttle, which was discovered in 1862. Now get your scopes and cameras out, Adrian. Several times a year, for a few hours near its first quarter phase, a feature on the moon called the lunar X becomes visible in strong binoculars and backyard telescopes. When the rims of the craters Purbach, Lacaille, and Blancanus are illuminated from a particular angle of sunlight, they form a bright, small X shape. The lunar X is located on the terminator, about 1/3 of the way up from the southern pole of the moon at 2 degrees east, 24 degrees south. On Friday, July 16th, the X is predicted to start, developing by about 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, peak in intensity at around 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and then gradually fade out. The peak will be during waning daylight for observers in the Eastern Americas, but you can observe the moon in a telescope during daytime as long as you take care to avoid the sun. It's also the 52nd anniversary on July 20th of humankind's first steps on another world. The 6 crewed Apollo missions were sent to different regions of the moon in order to carry out experiments and to bring back rock samples that help us determine the age and composition of the moon's surface. For safety reasons, Apollo 11 was sent to the flat and relatively featureless terrain of Mare Tranquillitatis, Sea of Tranquility. Later missions landed in more rugged regions with complex geology. When the moon approaches full phase, all the regions where the astronauts explored are illuminated by sunlight, including the most westerly site, Apollo 12, and Oceanus Procellarum. For about an hour after sunset on Wednesday, July 21st, and very low in the west-northwestern sky, the very bright planet Venus will gleam above the prominent double star Regulus in Leo. The orbital motion of Venus will carry it within a finger's width to the upper right of or 1 degree to the celestial north of Regulus on Wednesday, close enough for them to be viewed together in a backyard telescope. Magnitude minus 3.93 Venus will outshine magnitude plus 1.34 Regulus by about 130 times. The duo will be observable in binoculars, the red circle you see there, and with Mars to their lower right for the entire week. Ensure that the sun has set fully before pointing optics towards the western horizon. While the moon's monthly visit with the gas planet giants will begin with Saturn on the previous evening, sky watchers who are also outside on Saturday night, July 24, will find our slightly less than full natural satellite shining very brightly below and between the bright Jupiter on the left, or celestial northeast, and Saturn on the right, celestial northwest. After they finish rising about 9:30 p.m. local time, the trio will make a nice wide field photo opportunity when composed with some interesting scenery. We're looking at you, Adrian.
I'm
And
working
on
on
Thursday, on Thursday, July 29, Mars will follow in Venus's footsteps and pass only 38 arc minutes, less than a finger's width, above Leo's brightest star Regulus. They'll be visible just above the northwestern horizon after sunset, with Venus shining brightly to their upper left or celestial east. White-colored Regulus will shine slightly brighter than reddish Mars. The pair will be close enough to be seen together in a backyard telescope, the red circle here, for a night or two on either side of Thursday too. But objects observed that low in the sky will be blurred by Earth's atmosphere. Observers viewing from equatorial and southern hemisphere latitudes will see them higher and in a darker sky. And that's it for In the News and in the Sky for July 15, 2021. Back to you, Diane.
Thank you, Dale. It is 8:27. Let's take a 20-minute break before we reconvene with our presenter of the night. So grab a drink, grab some popcorn, share your photos, chatter amongst yourselves, and we'll see you at 8:48.
All right, I'm going to give this a try again. Here, I'll share something that, okay, so if I can share a butterfly, I can share a space picture. So let's try again.
It's a nice butterfly.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't want me to share that picture. How about, okay, how about something that's okay, so I can share an unrelated picture of St. Joseph. I can share that. I should be able to share.
Is it me or is that lighthouse tilted?
It might be a little bit tilted, but not by much.
I mean, your horizon looks steady. The posts for the walkway going out there looks vertical, but
yeah,
the lighthouse looks like it's tilted to the left a degree and a half.
Tilted to the left a little bit. It's definitely not straight on. Okay, how about this? Okay, every astro picture I've tried to share with the group is coming up blank. It's like, oh, I can't share that. I don't want to. Let's try this. Can't share that either. Not sure what the I don't know what the qualifications are for sharing content anymore. Here's a red sun with a bird going through it. This is how the sun looks as it's setting. Now, as the Astronomical League member, remember, it is always dangerous to look at the sun. But if you must point your optics to it, you should wait until it's very low on the horizon, shoot very fast with very, very narrow aperture, and do not focus your camera for longer than the time it takes to snap the photo, because the sun can cause some damage to your optics. So if you are like me and you like to shoot at the sun, please be careful. There are a couple of pictures I have that, of course, I'm not able to share because there's some sort of action on size, I think. Okay, when the sun is this low on the horizon, it's okay to shoot at it. It's okay to watch. About the only time it's okay is when the sun is so low and fighting through our atmosphere that, you know, it's not going to cause harm to the eyes or to the optical gear if you shoot at it. And I will share one more for my adventures, if it will let me. Okay, interesting photo here because you have people by the lighthouse, and in the kind of the middle right, there's the disk of the sun as it is going down. I had opportunities to frame this with something or have someone like hold their hand and grab it or do something weird, but I did not ask. I didn't ask anybody to do that because I was just there to enjoy the night sky. Let's see if this works. This was last night after the sun had already receded at Lake Hudson. It's an HDR picture. I've started shooting HDR lately to try and get the best of both worlds. I can try and get a brighter foreground with a detailed background. So essentially, I'm stacking my photos. And here's so there's the sun shrouded behind clouds. This is a spot, and it's a, know if
So Adrian, I have a question about astronomy at the beach.
Yes.
So I looked up the park that it's held in, and it appears that it is dog friendly. And I wanted to know, well, really from anybody in past, if the actual event is dog friendly, and do people bring it? Is it a bad idea, good idea, or just whatever?
They have
I was there once, and I don't remember many dogs, maybe a couple.
I don't either. As a volunteer, I didn't remember a lot of dogs either. The park itself being dog friendly, that is a very good question. I think what we're going to do is take that back with our Parks and Recs rep and find out from her what the stance has been. It just seems weird that other than seeing eye dogs, we haven't had to deal with a lot of issues with the dogs. So
it's it's just so far from where I live. We might consider getting a hotel, especially if my wife comes with me.
Yeah, that would be.
You know, it's like 2 hours each way, and if I'm going to be up late, you know,
yeah,
well, we don't like to be gone that long away from home, you know, with the dog at home. So
right. So the event is going to be from 5 to 11, so it won't be super late. The Great Lakes Stargaze, I think, is a week or so ahead of it.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fun part is after the Great Lakes Stargaze, I did get this is one of the astro images I took, the Cassiopeia region. So I'm going to scan this to see if I have a supernova in it. There's Andromeda to the right.
It's pretty pixelated on WebEx.
Yeah, it will be. It will be because it's
yeah,
transferring all this data over the network, and it's probably And
Now,
I'm
it looks
waiting.
better there, but that previous image was pretty rough.
Okay. I just zoomed it in and out, so that's kind of weird.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was what I was talking about earlier with some of the air glow and the Canadian light pollution. Where you see the winter part of the galaxy beginning to rise or come around, but then it just sort of stops at that air glow right there, that greenish air glow, and then there's the Canadian towns that are across Lake Huron at the location that I was at. And this area where the pinkish area, I don't think that's aurora. I would expect it to be green if it were aurora, but that's facing north.
Well, there's some
So
green above it. I don't know.
yeah, you know what? That green I thought was air glow, or just a function of my processing. Maybe it is aurora. There was some activity on that night, but compared to the aurora I've shot, I wouldn't have recognized that. But maybe it was. Processing with images tends to bring that out. So I'll have to check. Maybe I did get lucky and catch a little aurora there. Usually the pink is on the top of it instead of below. But
I think the pink has to do with the elements in the atmosphere. I believe the green is from nitrogen. The red might be oxygen, and the purple.
I always thought the red might be hydrogen or something like that, but
no, I read the green was the nitrogen. It's the most common you'll see. So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yep. I'll stop sharing. I've been kind of dominating the sharing, so we'll let someone else share anything. Although there hasn't been much to do unless you've gotten creative like I have and just shot directly at the sun, or waited for the moment the sky cleared and started firing away. The glow of the Jupiter's lighting up of the lake. I wish any of those pictures. I'm just gonna try again. I'd like one of those pictures to work.
I took a picture of the Milky Way last year up at the Mackinac Bridge, and I got Jupiter reflecting off the lake.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find that.
Yeah, all of these pictures that I'm trying to share, and it's telling me no. Actually, I have a way to do it. All of my images are showing up in Google Photos, so I'll cheat and do that. Okay, here's 20. Yeah, I'll find something that shows Jupiter, because maybe the format that Google Photos has it in will work. Sunday. But yeah, that's okay. Here's something. We'll try that. Should be to. Oh no, that's not what I want to do with it.
How much switch? What do you want?
Yeah, I'll see if I can if it'll let me send it to WebEx, but it won't. Here we go. Yeah, I'm doing this all on 5G network somehow. I'm saving. It wants me to Yeah, well, just to finish my thought is that it's seeing Jupiter shine like that. There was something about its light reflecting in the lake that just kind of took me aback, because I'm thinking how far away it is, and yet the light from the sun is bouncing all the way onto the lake. Would like to.
Yeah, I don't have any photos of it, but I remember when we were looking out over the lake. Most of my photos are down by the bridge, and the lights of the bridge are obscuring any light, any reflection
Yeah,
from Jupiter.
I saw that. It was a valiant attempt. A astrophotographer that I know did a composite where she processed the Milky Way photo, took a picture of the bridge, and then slapped the two together. So
Yeah.
you had a Milky Way that looked impossibly bright, next to that. And I remember Jim Renard kind of called it out and was like, "That's not, that doesn't seem right. You have to call that out." He wasn't so happy about it, but I
people do composites. That's artistic. It's just, don't try to sell it as, hey, this is what I saw, kind of stuff.
Right.
Mine actually was a single image. I didn't even stack anything, so I only had about an hour to play around with there, and
Yeah.
driving and stopped, and it was late, so yeah.
Now I know how I'll do this. Share to.
How often do you come up to the thumb to go to Lake Huron?
More of it's a spur of the moment thing, and I tend to come up more often.
How much planning is it?
It's not very much. It's kind of like, oh, the sky is gonna be bright tonight. I hop in the truck, carry some gear, which is usually the wide angle gear and the tracker and the bigger tripod. 2 hours and something later, I look at the sky and decide if I'm going to get all the way to Point O'Bark Lighthouse, or am I just going to stop. One of my favorite places to stop is, and I'm about to save the image here. One of my favorite places to stop is a beach, and I'm about to try and show you what this beach looks like. That you can get to one of the roadside parks. It's like the middle roadside park on Highway 25. There's 3 roadside parks facing Lake Huron. 2 of them will take you down next to the lake. This one has a beach that you can go down. So you can go right on the beach. You can walk right into the lake. You can be frightened by bigger waves coming in and crashing as you're trying to take your images there. I don't know how busy it is at day, but at night it's absolutely no one's there, and that's where I tend to go now.
I stopped at a park one time up there that I was going to take some photos down by the lake, and it was locked.
There we go.
I mean, like,
that's a picture.
Yeah, they had the gate locked or chained or something,
Yeah, they're open now. All those gates are open.
Okay.
Because I drove by it when they were locked, and I promptly parked in front of the locked gate and ignored that and still got shots. But this is that beach area, and the Milky Way is so high, the core is obscured. I'd have to walk around, and I may do that one night, go walk around that area to see if I can get the core, if it's still in that position. The picture, it's off a little bit for some reason. I think the 14 millimeter lens skews it, but there's Jupiter, a bright spot there, and there's the reflection off of the water.
What 14 lens do you use?
I have a Sigma 14 to 24 f2.8 wide angle, the art lens, the Sigma art lens. I actually, the guy that I had gotten a Canon lens 14 prime from, I wasn't happy with its inability to really get stars in focus, and he agreed a little bit of an exchange to, and I now have that Sigma. I'm very happy with the Sigma, especially since the controls are tight. And I've started using backyard EOS if I do like deeper imaging, and that helps with putting things in focus. I'm getting used to using that.
I'm thinking about selling my Samyang 14 millimeter f2.8. It's the same as a Rokinon. I might bring that. I might bring that to the club swap meet.
Yeah, that would, Samyang, for all it may not do so well for daytime photography, but as you know, astrophotographers have been pulling out fantastic images with it, and I think they realize that because their latest iteration is designed with astrophotography in mind. It's got the green light that suggests that you're at infinity focus, that you can use in the dark, so that you, instead of shining a flashlight to look for the infinity marking to start from, a green light will flash when it's on infinity, and then you can start focusing in from there. So
I have 4 of their lenses, and I've been happy with them. I have two 14s, and I'm thinking about selling one of them off.
Hey y'all, friendly reminder, we're about to reconvene, so I'm excited to hear people are bringing stuff to the swap meet, because we'd love to see it. But just filter on back to your seats, mute yourselves if you're not part of the presentation, turn your camera back on if you'd like our speaker to see your smiling face, and I will be shortly turning things over to our first vice president. Just a brief announcement from the chat. Riyadh is planning to go to Stargate on the night of August 11th, if it is clear, to observe the Perseid meteor shower. It'll be straight up meteor watching. We're not planning to open the observatory, but y'all are welcome to join Riyadh, and I hope I can do the same. All right, I see Dr. Dale. It is 8:48 on the nose. Take it away, sir.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Brian Ottum as our speaker. There's a lot of things I could say about him. I'll say a few. First of all, he's been really into amateur astronomy for almost 50 years. Got started seeing a lunar eclipse. Since then, he's seen 4 total solar eclipses. He's in 6 different astronomy clubs. Must be competing with John Blum, who I think he's in 7. He was involved in dedicating the Port Crescent State Park Dark Sky Preserve. Co-author on a comet nucleus research paper. And a lot of other things. You can read about him in the WASP. I'm looking forward to his topic tonight. How to get started in astrophotography, maximize joy, and minimize dollars. We'll see if he sucks me into this or not. Brian, you're up.
Thank you, Dale, for the very nice introduction. And I look forward to meeting folks virtually and having a good presentation. And I encourage folks to put your questions in the chat. If you're in the WebEx or if you're on YouTube, put your questions in the chat there. And I'm going to share my PowerPoint, and we'll get started here. And I really want to be simple. And so how am I looking there? Is the presentation looking good?
Good, Brian.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
All right. So, yes, like Dale said, I really want to, this is going to be focused towards the beginner, okay? A lot of stuff I do is not. This is for the beginner. And like Dale said, I saw a lunar eclipse, and like all of us, I buy a bigger and bigger telescope until my back goes out. And so I had to get rid of the big scope, but I got into the old digital photography, and I pushed my chips to the table 8 years ago, and that's my scope on the left. It's a remote telescope in the desert, and I remote control it with my laptop or my telescope control computer. And I do various presentations and take pictures, and I just have a blast. So I'm heavily into it, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. If you want to see that, you can look at my YouTube channel. My YouTube on the bottom right there. I was doing it monthly over the winter, YouTube live sessions, and I would have a theme and wear one of these funny hats. That's my theme. Is I always wear a crazy, ridiculous hat. And I have Instagram. You can see my latest pictures on Instagram. But we're going to really focus on what's simple. So how do you have joy? Because this hobby of astrophotography has higher highs and lower lows than visual. It's kind of like a roller coaster, I find. So I want to tell folks is that first point, there's 3 points we're going to cover. Focal length equals difficulty. Never forget that. So if you want joy, if you're starting, you have low focal length. If you want pain, suffering, and spend a lot of money, jump right to putting a camera on a telescope and taking pictures. It ain't going to go well. Number 2, equipment. We always talk about equipment. We get so excited. Oh boy, this, that, and talking about all our equipment. Hey, equipment is a small part of success, and it's the most expensive part. So the good thing is we can not spend money and have a lot of fun and get really good. I'll show you how to do that, and I'll show you how to do it, my recommended path. So astrophotography is like climbing a mountain, and this is your mountain that you have to climb. You don't have to, and you can go part the way up, and you can decide, I'm done right there. Okay, like near the plateau at the bottom. That's fine. Hey, I just want to tell you that it is part of it is the joy of learning, the joy of getting through a problem, learning new things, troubleshooting. But there's always another peak past the one where you're at. And as Adrian will attest, and he's been heading up that mountain. And so that's my analogy here, and I'll go through it. At the lower left part of the mountain is a wide angle. Remember, short focal length. Short focal length is where you start. That's Tahquamenon Falls, wide angle lens on a tripod, easy peasy, right? Very simple equipment, not a lot of money. And I caught a meteor. So that was lots of fun. Stepping up, let's take a picture of Orion, the constellation. Okay, now we need a tracker. All right, and I have to do a little more, spend a little more time and money on that. And then there's actually a big jump to get the Orion Nebula through a telescope, and then now you need a fancy mount and a lot of time and money and all that hassle. And then when you try to take a picture of galaxies, now Andromeda is big, but people like to take pictures of the smaller galaxies, but that's when it gets to be very difficult and very expensive. And so this is the progression, and the progression from lower left to upper right is difficulty, expense, time, and focal length. Focal length is everything. So starting on the lower left, nightscapes, nice and simple, great way to start. Then you graduate to constellations, pictures of the moon, the sun. But then there's a big jump, nebulas, galaxies, planets, and then galaxies. So I want to focus today's talk on the lower left because it's cheaper, simpler, and more fun. This is the
That's
focal
why I
length.
do it.
Is there a question? Okay.
No, I was just saying that's why I do it.
Yes. And I encourage everybody to get those questions into the chat because we're going to be going through them. And we were just discussing in the break of the 14 millimeter wide angle. It's a wonderful. The Samyang is for starting with. Low cost, easy, and you can get a nice nightscape. by nightscape, I mean, a landscape shot of the Milky Way, and it reflected in water, hopefully, or something like that, or with trees. Beautiful. And so, but if we step up the millimeters, you can see more detail, but it becomes more difficult and more expensive. This is kind of a logarithmic scale, isn't it? And 100,000 way on the right. And so you can really rack up some money, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to stay on the left, right? Because we're going to talk about simple, easy fun and not a lot of money. So if you want to stay in the simple, easy fun, not a lot of money, you use what you've got. We'll even talk about phone. DSLRs are great, especially there's a lot of used ones you can pick up. The new mirrorless are fantastic. If you're going to start from nothing, I would say buy a mirrorless. Then you get a tracker, $300, and just staying right there. You can have a blast for 5 years, just right there. And then it's the big hop up to a telescope, a mount, fancy mount, a CMOS cooled camera, filter wheel, and on and on and on. And then you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about the lower left. We're going to talk about $1,000 or less. Nightscapes are a blast. I took this shot with just a camera on a tripod of the Northern Lights in Canada a few years ago. And we're approaching solar max coming up in the next 3 or 4 years. We're going to have great opportunities. And like Adrian was saying, going up to the tip of the thumb, you're going to get shots like this. I'm confident. And perhaps as early as this fall. And you got other shots here of Bryce Canyon and the Milky Way shot at the bottom center. That's from northern Michigan. And we're using a DSLR and a wide angle lens. By wide angle, I mean less than 50 millimeters. Well, if we graduate from that, we go 50 to 200 millimeters. Now we need a tracker. You're going to spend 1,000 or 3,000, but hey, we can get some good shots of bigger chunks of the sky. Roll with Ophiuchus. We can get our good comet shots and close-ups of lunar eclipses. I got this shot with a 24 millimeter in Lake Hudson. So Lake Hudson is not super dark, but I was with Adrian and we dodged the clouds. There were clouds passing by, and I got about an hour's worth of exposures. I think these were roughly, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute exposure, and I got an hour's worth.
Yeah, I think you did a minute exposure each.
Adrian knows better than I do.
That's because I tried to do the same thing, and it was cold, and all of my exposures were covered with frost. So it was a big fail for me, but you had an excellent shot.
I've made every mistake, and I want people to learn from my mistakes. Now, the trick that I will tell you about is hand warmers. If you don't want to spend the money on little heat strips and then plug them into a power supply, which is fine, you can do that for 20, 50 bucks. If we want it, if our goal here is cheap and fun, we just get those disposable hand warmers and we rubber band them to the lens hood. And that's what I used that night to keep the frost off me. And by morning, the whole camera was covered in like a 1/4 inch of frost. But so this is just an example of, you can get a great shot in Michigan of Barnard's Loop with not a lot of spending of money, and you can stay in Michigan. So it can be done, and I'll tell you some websites and YouTubes later on how you can go with this if you want to go down this path. Now, we're going to quickly go through, hey, I have more money I want to spend. Okay, we can get pictures like this, but you're going to spend thousands. You can get better pictures of planets. I want to spend a whole lot more, and now I have to have auto guiders. I have to have an auto guiding telescope, which is a second piggyback telescope, or off-axis guiding, and I have to use filters, and now you're talking about a lot of money, and of course you get great shots too. But the Andromeda, this is like 15 hours of exposure. It's a composite of 2. Edge on 4565, the Whirlpool, and you can see some of the stars getting whipped off into space from the great cataclysm of these two coming together. But this is like 6 hours of exposure out there in the desert.
That's amazing detail.
It's great detail, but in Michigan, we'd need double. You need 15 hours of exposure to get a shot like this. But we're not going to focus on the high end stuff. We're going to focus on low end tonight. Lastly, I got an M13 shot that I'm very surprised with. This was taken with a 10-inch Dob, which was modified for astrophotography, but it was born in Taiwan as an Orion Dob, and so really helped to pick a good night. All right, now it's very important. I hear people talk about what equipment did you use, what settings and all this stuff, and from what we might think is our first reaction, it's equipment. It's all about equipment. Oh, equipment is 3/4 of the important part of taking a good picture. And my assertion is equipment is only 30% of a great shot. The good news then is that that's the expensive thing. The other things don't cost much, just time. And the blue pie is location and timing. And Adrian gets out there and he gets to the good locations and good timing. Like when it's very, very, very clear. Okay, that's 10% right there, and maybe more. And at the bottom, just knowing how to use your equipment. It is so frustrating to get out there on a good night with good equipment and things go wrong because of all this technology we deal with. It is so easy to have something go wrong. And then the artistic composition is part of it. But the point I want to leave you with is the big red section is post-processing. It's the biggest contributor, in my opinion, of a good shot. I have gone back to old crappy pictures I've taken years ago, and now that I know a bit more about post-processing, I can make them look pretty darn good. So it's very important to learn post-processing. And the good news, that only takes time. It does not take a lot of money. This software, you can get Photoshop for $10 a month, right? And some of these other programs are cheaper, AstroPixel Processor and many other programs. It's looking like the gold standard for people who are serious is PixInsight. And that one looks to be gaining ground and perhaps getting easier. But the point is, you got to spend the time post-processing. I know many people who have left the hobby midway through is because they didn't like the post-processing. So that's okay. You can just stay at the level you want to. But it's important that equipment is not everything. What if I only got a phone? Well, you know what? Today, the pictures you can take with a phone are better and better. The Android, the Pixel, has announced an astrophotography mode this month. And I'm excited to try it out. I tried out the previous mode. It worked pretty darn well. And so if you can get a little tripod or something that'll grab your camera and get some shots, and I urge people to get out for the meteors, right, on the 11th and 12th, even from Stargate Observatory. Get some pictures of the meteors. Get some pictures of the Milky Way with the meteors. Get a little tripod or a holder for your phone and try some shots. Because the phone app is updating all the time, both on the Apple and Android. So I highly recommend that. And if you got a telescope, you can get something that holds the camera right onto the eyepiece using the afocal method. And I've seen some pretty darn good pictures of Saturn and lunar craters and even galaxies with the phone just stuck to the eyepiece. But it is a very time-consuming and tedious task. So that's why the little picture there, I would recommend you get one of those that holds the camera on the eyepiece securely, and you can move it in minor directions, left, right, up, down. But it's free, other than that holder, and everybody's got a phone, right? So, and they're getting better and better. The new Android or the new Pixel phone has time lapse. It's got night sky time lapse. I can't wait to try that out. This is some shots. The night I was with Adrian, I got the shot on the left. That's a phone picture. That's taken with my phone. I got a picture of the solar eclipse with my phone a few weeks ago. And the bottom right-hand corner, that is the comet from last summer, last July. So you can get good pictures with your phone, and the phone are getting better and better and better. All right, but the standard way I urge people to get started in this hobby is with a tripod, a DSLR or mirrorless, a wide-angle lens, and that's it. Red headlamp is nice. Intervalometer, you know, a shutter release. But this is the way to go, and you can do so much and have so much fun. And Lonely Speck is a website that's oldie but goodie. So you get out to a dark sky, you can get the Milky Way. Time lapses are fun, really fun and easy. I urge you to play with that, and it's easy to work with those. Having a nice foreground with clouds, with rocks, trees, anything that's interesting makes it fun. And learning post-processing. And then once you have fun taking pictures that way, and you can bring out the Milky Way, like if you take pictures on August 11th, you bring out the Milky Way with some meteors, and you play with Photoshop or whatever program you're using, you're going to learn a lot and you're going to have a lot of fun. Then the next step will be buy a tracker, and that's about $300. And so this is the path to joy. Like I said, the path to pain is to skip this step and go straight to putting a camera on your telescope, like your 8-inch SCT. And so you're taking a picture at 2,000 millimeters. And you quickly will find that that's tearing your hair out, and it's very frustrating. So that's, I recommend this, and it keeps your costs down. But in this learning post-processing costs nothing. It costs nothing other than your time. So I highly recommend spend the time just learning that and some of these tools. And I'm a Photoshop person, and so I went down that path. But I totally respect people who start out and go down the PixInsight path. And you could do that as well. And Doug Bach could comment on that when we finish about that fork in the road that you've got to take. People ask, okay, what settings do I use when I'm out there at the tip of the thumb, and I want to take some pictures of the night sky and the Perseid meteor showers? Have a wide angle. I don't recommend zooms unless you've got a fancy zoom, an expensive zoom. Okay, usually zooms are like slow, they're f4 or f5.6. The zoom that comes with a camera is, to be honest, crap for astrophotography. It's much better to have a prime lens, a fixed lens. And so something in the 14 to 30 millimeters is great. And 2.8 or faster is really great because you just collect a lot of light quickly and you don't need a long exposure. And so collecting a lot of light is wonderful. So there's a lot of lenses that are less than f2.8 that are coming out. How long do I expose? Well, if you don't have a tracker to track the sky, you got to go shorter. And they call this rule of 500, which works great. So if you have a 25 millimeter lens, you divide it into 500 and you get 20-second exposures. If you had a 50 millimeter lens, a nifty 50, as people say, which is perfect for catching a constellation like Orion, 500 divided by 50 would be a 10-second exposure. This is the longest you can expose before your stars turn into little streaks. So we don't like little streaks, we would like little points. We might tolerate elongated points, okay? And so you can play with it. The greatest thing about astrophotography with a digital camera is the trash button. Because you just throw the picture away, you try again. Love it, love it. And ISO is 1600 or 3200. You take your pick. Cameras don't like heat. So if you want good pictures, keep your camera cool. During the day, don't sit it in the car. Don't sit it in a hot trunk, okay? Put your camera somewhere it can stay cool. And because a cooler camera is a happier camera and there's less noise. And if it's cooler, then you can crank up the ISO. You can crank up the sensitivity, the speed. And so 1600 is a good basic speed. it's relatively fast. It'll pick up those photons quickly. If it's a little cold outside, or if you got a newer camera, you can go up to 3200. I go up to 6400 in the cold weather because then I'm usually okay. But you can play with it. You'll find out if you crank up the ISO, you get, oh, nice bright pictures, but then your noise is bad. And so you don't want to have bad noise. So just like anything else, just play with it. But these are settings that I recommend people to start with, and then you can go from there. Here's some tips and tricks, and we've already talked about the first one. Disposable hand warmers. You tape them, or you put a rubber band around the lens, especially on the underside of the lens hood. And then the heat will rise, and the heat will keep the lens clear of fog and clear of frost. And I've also got some that are, they're warming heat tape, and they're rubberized, and you can put them around the lens. But those really run down your battery. I mean, they will use battery big time. So you really got to be careful with some of those. And these little hand warmers, you can buy a big bag of them pretty cheap at the store. So I like that. The beginner thinks that, oh, if I put the lens on an infinity, it'll focus perfect. Infinity is not that. You've got to play with it. And so focusing and tracking are the two things that you will suffer with if you spend $1,000 on your rig or $50,000 on your rig. Those two things will bedevil you the rest of your life. Focus and tracking. They're always critical. They always go bad. So the way you focus is on the Canon and the Nikons and the Sonys. You can put it on live view, and you can really zoom in on a bright street light far away or a bright star far away, and you really are zoomed in on the screen, and you're focusing it really good. And once you got that focus really good, put a piece of duct tape on the lens. Very important, because you don't want to be knocking it, messing with it as you're playing with the camera to point it, and you lose focus. So once you get that focus set, make sure that it's stuck down. Here's another error I made. I focused perfectly. I aimed the camera up at Andromeda overhead. I set it up for 3 hours of tracked images throughout the whole night, and I got my pictures at the next morning. I looked at them. The first 5 or 6, great, and then it starts to get fuzzy, and now we're way out of focus. The stars are donuts. What the heck did I do? The zoom ring turned. The weight of the lens pushing on the camera made the zoom change. It changed the focal length. What a nightmare. I wasted a whole night. So now if I'm going to use a zoom, and I tell you not to use a zoom, but if that's all you got, put a tape on that so that it doesn't zoom in or out. And so that was my stupid mistake. Tripod feet. I've had shots that suddenly I'm losing my pointing because the tripod feet, one of them's falling into the ground because it's muddy. Well, push them in. And I've had shots ruined I'll get vibrating stars because the wind comes up in the middle of the night and it's flapping and hitting the telescope. Your strap is hitting. And batteries are a huge problem. The colder it is, the less the batteries go, right? So I recommend that you get extra batteries, start with a fresh battery. I don't like the no-name Chinese cheap batteries. I gotta say, if you buy the no-name cheap Chinese batteries for a Nikon or a Canon camera, they are not good. It's better to spend the money for the real thing. Also, you can get a battery grip, right, that holds 2 batteries underneath the camera, and that's great. So that doubles your ability to take pictures. So I really like the battery grip if you're going to be doing all-night shots. But you can buy with just a regular battery that you've got. Just make sure it's charged up. And my last trick is when you do get the tracker, if you set it to half speed, meaning half sidereal tracking, half of the star tracking speed, which just so happens to be 15 degrees per hour, right? And so that's what you want to set it on. If you set it for half speed, then when in a nice wide angle shot, it will spread the error of tracking between the stars and the ground. The ground doesn't move, so you want its tracking to be 0. The stars are moving at sidereal rate. You want to be tracking at sidereal rate. But if you go halfway in between the two, it's a nice happy medium. You get a nice shot of the stars, and you're still picking up the foreground. So I like to set the tracker at half speed. And so I'm going to show you some equipment that I found to be useful. The Nifty 50, the 50mm f2 lens, the Nikon and for the Canon is a great way to start to play with, and it's usually about $100, and I recommend that. And then the next jump up, and I just heard that Dale H is going to be selling one of these on the upper right hand corner at the swap meet. So be ready for that, because the 14mm f2.8 from Rokinon Samyang is awesome. I love it, love it, love it. And you'll see people all over the web loving that lens. It's just fantastic. And they've also now come up with others that are fantastic. And the 135 is fantastic for a little more telephoto. Now with the 135, you got to have a tracker. It's going to be hard to get a whole lot, but it's a wonderful lens. And then lastly, at the bottom, the Tokina 20mm, it's $500. It's supposed to be just fantastic. I've heard wonderful things about this. But it's a lens for the mirrorless, for the new Sony. Like I said, if you've got yourself a camera, a DSLR, use it. A Canon, a Nikon, a Minolta, whatever. Just use it, because you should, because it's fun, and you don't want to spend any more money. If you want to get into this and you don't have a DSLR, and you're thinking of buying something, I'd say get the new mirrorless, because that's the new 21st century format. And that's just a lot lighter and more efficient, and it's just a superior technology that's coming along slowly, but it's going to put the DSLR out of business. So I recommend that. So this lens at the bottom center is if you were to go with the Sony. The Sony, they just make a good camera. Then the tracker. Once you graduated, a tracker's $300. There's many to choose from. This right here is at least a year old, and there's others that have come out since. So just get something they're usually nice and small, and they'll go in a backpack, and they will run on batteries, small batteries, and tracking is wonderful nowadays. It didn't used to be, but it's really, really good, easy and fun now. And what if you don't want to spend really any money at all? I mean, you're talking, if you don't want to spend any equipment, and I don't want to leave the house, but I do want to take pictures of space, and I recommend Slew. And you've probably had a speaker on it here at the WASP Club, but it is a blast, because you can pick the shots you want, and it'll take those shots, and you can download those shots. And if you want to learn your post-processing, you can stack the shots in a stacking program. And like I got pictures of like the Crab Nebula, and I stacked like 5 or 10 images together, and I got a pretty decent picture. And it's dollars per month, okay? And it's fun. And so this is a way that you can play with and take your own pictures and say they're yours, and learn some of the skills. So I highly recommend the Slew, and there are other alternatives kind of like that are coming along. Now, post-processing, I said, is the most important step, and I have a whole presentation on post-processing. We're not going to get into it because it's very boring. Unless you're into it, it's either critical to you and you really, really, really care a lot about it, or most people just yawn. But the key steps are, just adjusting the contrast, right? You want to bring out the galaxy. You want to de-emphasize the stars. That's adjusting contrast. Increase color saturation. I want that blue galaxy, all right? Or I like the stars, very saturated with colors. I crank up this color saturation. Noise. We have a lot of noise problems with this hobby. It's usually because we try to, I can only take a 10-second exposure, so I have to use ISO 10,000. Well, that's going to be a noisy shot. And so sharpening, taking out noise is a key thing. And there's a lot of plugins and different programs that are available nowadays that do a really good job. And then it comes sharpening. A lot of people like to sharpen the dust lanes of a galaxy, and that's a good thing. And in cropping artistically, this is something I am not good at, and I'm trying to get better. Cropping. What you don't want to do is have a picture smack in the center. If your object is already right in the center, boy, that's boring. So that's post-processing. And if you want to learn more, there are so many good websites. An oldie but goodie is Lonely Spec, where he shows you how he got a great, spectacular image of Orion. Astro Backyard is a gentleman from near Toronto, young man who shows you every step of the way, how he does everything, and I love it. And but really the best is YouTube. Holy cow, there are so many. I just saw like 4 days ago, a guy had a really great YouTube on using one of the Samyang 135 millimeter telephotos and how to take a picture of Scorpius and how he processed it. And so that is great. And our member of a Lowbrows has and she didn't get back to me, but if you email me, and I can put it in the chat, my email address, if you want to ask me any questions at all, happy to answer any questions. But Amy did a YouTube of how to get started as a beginner. And she has a great video, and maybe it's not in the Ann Arbor Library's website anymore. I'm not sure, but I can get you that. But there's so much on YouTube. Just type, what you want to do, and it's going to be there. And we're coming to the end, so we're going to have plenty of time for all your questions. Dark Sky, Dark Sight Finder, you probably have seen this. Clear Dark Sky, we've known it for 20 years, right? What about apps? Sky Safari, right? Sky Safari is fantastic for showing you exactly where to look, when is it going to be up? Can I see the center of the Milky Way, or is it going to be gone? And there are some folks who just swear by an app called Photo Pills. Weird name, Photo Pills. And I've heard a lot of professionals use it. And so it's called Photo Pills, and I heard wonderful, wonderful things about that. So I urge you to take a look at that. And if you really want to know where to point, when to go, but the Dark Sight Finder is about really good for where to go. But for us here, and for especially folks who are in the northern Detroit suburbs, Port Crescent State Park is a natural to go. They have a very nice, it's an official dark sky park, but you got to go to the day use beach area. Okay, you can't go to the campground. You can't use the other areas in the park. They're not very good. But the day use area is great. And there's a big parking lot, and there's no lights at all. Until some yahoo drives in with their brights on, which unfortunately does happen. It's unavoidable. But it's a highly recommended place to go. And if you then hike up over the dune to the beach, then you get an unobstructed shot straight north, and that's for your Milky Way shots. If you're located more in the western suburbs or near me in Ann Arbor, well, then Lake Hudson is a natural place to go. And I showed you that Orion picture that Adrian and I got, and that's a great spot. So these are the two dark sky sites. Also, Adrian mentioned Point O'Barks, which is a Point O'Barks lighthouse is very nice, and there's a campground there, and that's pretty nice, and it's also in the Thumb area. And my favorite area is near Mayo and the Osable River. And that's where I'll be for the meteor shower coming up here in less than a month. So I want to wrap it here by telling you that there are 3 things if you want to have joy and no pain. Low focal length. Remember that equipment is just part of the success. It is not at all everything. And that if you start with small focal length, you'll have a lot more fun, and you'll jump up that mountain much faster. Since we got another minute, I'll just go through some pictures to show you what's easy and what's hard. Orion coming up over the pond, easy. Comet, hard, because you have to have special tracking on the comet and close up. Taking a picture of Venus crossing the sun was medium hard. You need a telescope, but it's just a click. It's a very, you're not tracking a lot. Getting a picture of the Orion Nebula relatively medium hard. I mean, you need to have a telescope or a long telephoto, but it's not super hard. Getting high resolution shots of the planets, medium hard. Got to learn some good video processing skills. And lastly, long exposures of nebula. It could be hard. You got to have a long exposure and go for a long time. And if you're in light polluted area, you got to go even longer. So, and then getting a picture of an airplane in front of the moon, that's easy if you're at the right place and at the right time. So that completes what I've got. And I want to now have lots of questions, hopefully, and lots of discussion.
Excellent. I'd like to applaud you for taking a topic that many of us have found intimidating and reminding everybody that it doesn't have to cost a lot of money and you can have more fun without spending $10,000. So thank you very much for this topic. And I too welcome questions. Yeah. Dale Teamy, if you're still monitoring the YouTube channel, have we got any questions for Brian in the YouTube channel?
I posted them in the
Oh, you've been
chat.
posted. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, some people have been answering them already, but if you want to address some of them yourself, feel free.
Oh, it looks fantastic. It looks fantastic. Okay. So, yeah, lonely speck. All right. Yeah. Where should I start here?
Michael Young definitely looks interested in seeing if he can pursue the hobby. He has both the telescope and the camera and is just interested in like, where do I go? What do I do? The one thing that we didn't tell him, Brian, and something you told me a long time ago, depending on what you want to shoot. And we never mentioned it to him, but yeah, you have two different things that you can shoot. If you have a telescope, you have a camera, wide angle to narrow. Any recommendations for those of us who know the night sky and are just so eager to get started? We can't decide if we want to shoot a nebula, a galaxy, or maybe do a nightscape, and we aren't sure where to begin. And we already have a telescope. What is your recommendation to kind of get us focused?
I get this a lot, and it's hard, but I say step away from the telescope. Step away. It's nothing but heartache to start with. You can go back, but you got to learn. So you got to learn to walk before you run. I was at Great Lakes Stargaze about 10 years ago, and a gentleman had spent, in today's dollars, about $5,000 on cameras and telescopes. I watched him over 3 nights curse and get nothing. Nothing. So start easy. Just wide angle, tripod, tracker, have fun. And your opportunity is August 11th. Okay, Riyadh's going to open the observatory. August 11th, get out there at Stargate, camera on a tripod, and just take 30-second shots. You'll be astounded as what you'll pick up. And you might even catch some meteors. So that's a perfect way to start. But putting a camera on a telescope is just, it's too many steps. You're trying to jump up this mountain, and you can't just jump up to the middle of the mountain. You can't. You have to start slower. So I just recommend that. And let me see the.
Yeah, Brian, I appreciate that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, I'm trying to kind of get my family, friends involved. I've got a projector that sits in my backyard. They look through the telescope. I've got binoculars and stuff, and I'm, showing them the Jupiter moons and craters on the moon and all kinds of stuff like that. But I'd really like to, I've got Wi-Fi in the backyard. I'd love to be able to just show it on the big screen, like this is, you know, as I'm zooming around the sky, that's like my dream would be. But realistically, I've learned over the past year that I've gotten to this hobby that, you know, just because I can see beautiful pictures of Andromeda Galaxy or just whatever I'm seeing on NASA or any number of sites, these are pictures that have been over hours or days of exposure. And even if if I have unlimited budget, the most powerful telescope, sitting in my backyard and I have super dark skies, it's never going to really be, where I can just focus or, zoom the telescope around the sky and say, hey, look at that. That's this globular cluster, and this is this galaxy and nebula. And it just would be, it's just the distance, it's time and everything. And I've learned that, as your presentation spelled out, the post-processing is really where it's at. And I'm really eager to get into that and learn about the software and so on to really start capturing the stuff that I've got a camera now. I need to buy a lens, a wide angle lens. And that's really where I can probably start getting started, just start taking pictures with the camera on a tripod. I've got a good tripod, and telescope I'll leave for a while. I'm happy right now, just I don't have a mount or anything. I'm just kind of I sit on a chair and I use my arms and we just move the scope around. It's on one of those, alt azimuth mounts.
Yes.
And it's great. And my son he uses it almost as much as I do now and can find stuff, but it's mostly planets and moon and stuff that we're really using it for now. So I really want to get better at more deep sky stuff. And I don't think in Troy it's going to be useful. I need to get out to like Stargate or some darker skies, maybe at Port Crescent,
Right.
and so on.
There is a chasm between lunar and planetary, solar system stuff and deep space. I mean, there's probably 100x magnitude, in brightness, and it's 100x in difficulty in getting a good picture. But it is everyone's goal to get those spectacular shots right in front of you in the backyard that everybody can see.
Right.
That's why we're seeing some of these fancy things that you can now see, these new automated in telescope, right?
Yeah, and Celestron's got a Star Sense one that you can hook
these are coming, and
your phone right up to it. Yeah,
they're pretty good. They're not great, but they're
Sure.
pretty good. And so that it is coming, and I have put together a system that does this, but you got to have a go-to mount. You have to have a telescope that's super fast, like f4 or faster.
Okay.
You got to have a good color cooled camera. Okay, what have I talked about here? I've talked about $4,000, right? Right? I have to have a fancy laptop. I have to have a sharp cap that's live stacks. That live stacking? That is way cool. You can watch the image develop over the course of 30 seconds. So I can show a full color shot of the horse head in 30 seconds as it comes up. But I have to have that software. And then I need the projector. Yeah. And then I have to have a screen. And then, I have to learn how all this crap works. And I spent the spring doing this, but I have been doing this stuff for 40 years. Okay. But I spent a lot of hours this spring. So I have a system that does this. And then I'm going to be taking it on the road to the national parks this winter. And, but I think we're going to see more and more technologies to do this. Like you spoke of in these, because that's what people want. They want to see the picture of the galaxy like that.
Yes. Thank you. Awesome.
And I thank you. Other people have answered the questions and done a great job. Yeah. Gaffer's tape. Yep. And Michael, yeah, you can put the camera right on the telescope. You can and you can get really good pictures of the moon and planets just by sticking a camera in your Dob. It's really amazing. how do you recommend reducing noise with the Rokinon? You recommend the way you reduce noise is keep the camera cold. Don't let it sit in the hot trunk. That's number one. And then there's nothing else you can do. Then after the fact, you spend $80 on the Topaz denoise software. That's how you do it.
Got a
Or you
little, got a little
So-
levity. Got a little
Yeah.
levity.
So
Okay.
one thing I mentioned, sorry, Duck, I've been talking the whole time. I do notice that full frame camera sensors do a little bit better job if you're using DSLRs than the crop sensor, because it's a bigger sensor that can pull in more light. That's about the only other thing you can do. And then Doug, I'm gonna go on mute because Doug's got some wisdom here. So go ahead.
I got a little levity for you though. Remember you said that the easy shot was Venus in front of the sun? Well, you got to live to 2117 to see that. So it's not so easy.
Yeah, you are right, Ken. We are not going to see the Venus in front of the sun.
That's right. Sorry.
My grandchildren will. Brent asked a couple wonderful questions, and the one that I get a lot is, do you need a tracker for good Milky Way shots? And the answer is maybe. If you want a great Milky Way shot and you don't want a tracker, then you better spend the bucks on a really fast lens. Okay? Fast, like f1.4. Okay? I have a Sigma Art 24 millimeter f1.4. And with that sucker, I can get the Milky Way great in 20 seconds. And remember, 500 divided by 24 is 20 seconds. That's the longest I can go. But see, the tracker allows you to go over twice, triple that length of time. So it's well worth the $300. And so who's showing the nice picture of the Milky Way there? Is that Brent's?
Yes, it's Brent.
Excellent. We can see the kicking horse, the dark horse in the Milky Way. And so what you can see here is that the focus probably could be a little better. And like I said, the two things that will bedevil us if we spend $100,000, focus and tracking will always cause you problems. But like I said, use the live view and zoom in on the brightest star and get that focus perfect, and then slap that tape on there so that sucker will not move and you'll get good focus.
I almost wonder if this picture was intentionally not focused. It looks artistic, to me at least, the way it is.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, most of the nightscapes might be a little out of focus if you're like the foreground. If you really want the foreground to be tight, and you manage to put that in focus, and it's a single shot, your sky is not gonna quite be as in focus. But that's where when Brian was talking about doing, if you have a tracker and you go half of the sidereal speed, you get mostly the best of both worlds there, because your foreground stays sharp. It has to be a bit of a ways away from you, but your foreground will stay sharper than if you were to just track the sky, and your stars remain pinpoints, and it's that pinpoint that gets you deeper. Your Milky Way looks that much more crisp if you're going to do a nightscape with a foreground. Otherwise, if you want to dig into the Milky Way and you use your tracker and you go for a minute or so, then you have to take two shots and put them together with a composite. For the purposes of Brian's talk, that goes down under the medium to medium hard category, and you can get perfectly good shots on a single frame.
Yep.
So yeah, that's.
There's
I
another
would
point
agree
that
with the shot.
the point about blue stars came up a couple times, and I've seen blue stars as blue halos around bright stars in inexpensive lenses. Okay, so that could be the issue. If you're seeing that on an inexpensive lens, or especially a inexpensive zoom lens, definitely you're getting the violet and blue halos around bright stars. And believe it or not, there's something in Photoshop that helps reduce that, like that, or in Lightroom. So there is something you can do to fix those blue stars in Lightroom or Photoshop. But unfortunately, Photoshop is not an easy program to learn either. And I wish it was simpler. We are seeing some huge changes now with AI. Topaz is one example of very powerful software. They have two modules that are the big sellers, one that makes things sharp and one that takes noise away. And it's like magic. But it's like a sledgehammer too. And sometimes your pictures get really artificial. They look plasticky. They look weird. And so, but AI is being used now in these processing programs. And I predict if they can get AI into something like PixInsight, and we can just click one thing instead of spending 3 hours on clicking on things, holy cow. Now everybody can post-process. Well, like we are doing with our phone, right?
3 hours? What 3 hours?
Well, I'm exaggerating, but
Did you see my 12-minute video today?
I did not have a chance to see that.
Okay, that was from beginning to end, processing a galaxy in 12 minutes.
I love it. I'll have to watch it. It's
okay.
So Doug, I did see your video, and it turns out my PixInsight free subscription expired. So now I think I'm forced to buy it. But I was going to go and try some of the things that you did. Yeah, it looked.
Yeah, but to be fair to be fair to Brian, I don't go that last 20% that most of you guys do.
Well, yeah, and the
also,
it's a big. If you really want to go to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, that last 20% takes about 80 or 90% of the time.
Very true.
One thing I'll point out though, Doug, you get very good data, and that's it makes it so that you don't have to super process and make it Hubble-esque, but your data is very, very accurate. And that's one of the things that may be your goal. The mountain that you're talking about, Brian, you just may want to get to a point where you've got accurate data that's reasonably sharp and shows off the object itself, as opposed to post-processing and you're getting rid of stars and adding colors and palettes. And like Dale Hollenbaugh is on the call. Dale is pretty good at getting some really nice looking images working with the post-processing. So are you, Brian. But yeah, you can take the image, and like you said, it's art at that point. Auni I can never pronounce his name. I just call it Auni Hafida. I'm sure I butchered that. Really nice, post-processing. Probably takes him a month. He comes out with an image, and it's this amazing looking image. It's as artful as it is accurate. And then you got Doug Struble, 30 hours times 2.
But they're at the other end of the scale, and they spend a lot of money and time. We're trying to focus on beginners here, but even a beginner has to do post-processing. And the last question I see from Alan and Cheryl is, will a Mac work, or do you really need a PC? And yeah, the heavy duty or the real niche ones are for PC only. But the things like Photoshop, you can get on a Mac, and so you can still do a lot of good stuff on a Mac. So I wouldn't worry. So
example, I'm just gonna share an example, Brian, here. Is an example of the other component, and that is getting good data This is from Arizona, and you're of course used to this because you're in New Mexico with your site. But this was on a tripod in 2014 in the northeast Arizona, with just a 18 millimeter zoom lens, 18 to 55 zoom lens.
That's a low cost lens.
A low cost lens, cheap lens, in my Canon T3i. And this is 17 images stacked, and you can tell because the foreground is moving.
A little blurry.
Yeah, a little blurry.
Yeah.
But 17 15-second shots stacked.
Just a tripod.
Just
no
a
tracker.
tripod. No
Yeah,
tracker.
no
great.
tracker. No
I think
tracker.
that's a good demonstration of what you can do. That's a wonderful demonstration, so that you're talking about less than $1,000 total in equipment.
$700. $500. Yeah,
Yep.
the tripod and the camera and the lens was about $700 total.
And today somebody could go buy that used for $200.
Yeah, and using an interferometer as well. A remote.
$20 on
trigger.
Amazon.
Yeah. So
I guess to point out
the key,
well,
the key there, the key there was sky. If you get Bortle 1 sky in good sky conditions, you get better quality data to start with, so you can achieve things like that.
I didn't make the point, but I thought about it, and I'll say it now. We live in the most difficult astronomy place in the United States.
Yep.
It is cloudy all the time. When it's clear, the night is short. When it's clear, the mosquitoes are bad.
When
and
it's clear,
we have
it's
high
cold.
humidity all the time. This is a very difficult place to pursue visual and photographic astronomy. I just have to say that.
And the jet stream is directly above, damaging the seeing conditions.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing we get anything here.
But we persevere.
Yes, we do.
Brian, I thought that was an excellent presentation. I wonder if I can, my next presentation idea is maybe the corollary to yours, or how to spend a lot of money and frustrate yourself in a short amount of time until you figure out how to use it.
You know what a great presentation is? Here are my mistakes. Please do not repeat.
Well, actually, people learn from mistakes, though.
Yeah.
No, that's what I say. Learn from my mistakes. That's a great presentation right there.
Well, I think sometimes people have to have the mistake themselves to really learn.
I give
find
that.
that
I
I
get
do sometimes.
yes. People don't follow my advice a lot, and I watch them.
But I got there eventually. It just took longer.
If you're lucky, you make most of the mistakes in the 1970s and 80s.
I guess perseverance. Don't give up when you get frustrated.
But there's a whole different set of problems back then.
Right.
But on the flip side, we have wonderful foreground in Michigan, right? We got water, lakes, we got beautiful trees, we got Turcomanon Falls, we got lighthouses. We've got what, Arizona doesn't have those things.
Yeah, I'm trying to attempt, and of course, it's not working, but I'm attempting to share about as deep a Milky Way as I was able to get, and I had to travel to the UP in order to get such a thing. Of course, none of the content that I have in my regular pictures thing is sharing, but in order to get the gist of it is, in order to get something similar to what Doug got in Arizona with 15 images and stacking, was a tracker, a Bortle 2 sky, a rare, clear, steady night, and a minute of tracking without regard to the foreground. So, and I used the 17 millimeter lens when I shot that, and that was how I ended up with the brightest and most detailed Milky Way that I've taken in a Michigan sky. Otherwise, I've used a fully mounted astro camera, which is, since Brian didn't bring that up, it's worth mentioning that goes along kind of the medium to hard scale. You spend money to change your DSLR to do full-time astrophotography.
You
that's
might
another-
as well buy a cooled camera at that point because it's already ready for your near infrared.
Yeah, so that's the part that I'm contemplating now, because like a couple of like you, Doug and Dale, you're able to rig it with a wide angle lens and then take shots with that. So, and then you can mount it and shoot it. But that's probably a next step that I'm either going to follow, because it was either that or modify the Canon 6D, which was a pretty extraordinary camera when it came to night photography. Even Canon just sort of admits that they somehow made that thing. It turned out to be a great astro shooter or a nightscape shooter.
All right. Well, that was one heck of a talk. Do we have any more questions from YouTube, Dale?
No, it's kind of cleared up right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Brian. It was good to see you again. And definitely, like I said, very refreshing to have a reminder of how you don't have to spend a ton of money on astrophotography to have a good time and come up with wonderful images. So
I have one more thing to say. Get out there if it's clear and see the meteors, because there's no moon to mess you up.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be up at Boone.
Nice.
Not sure where I'll be, but in October I'll get aboard a One Sky. If I don't go to Nebraska beforehand at the beginning of August, I'll be going to Okie-Tech with the other astronomy group I'm a part of. The Lowbrows have a contingency going down there.
When's that? October, right?
Yep, in October. Are you planning on hitting that, Doug?
I'm thinking about it.
Join Camp Lowbrow. Anybody coming in, you're welcome to join Camp Lowbrow. We're all vaccinated. We're all planning on having a good time. And I'm planning on gunning for a couple of deep targets to see what I can do.
Yeah, if I go down, it'll be for a couple of weeks though.
So is the Perseids on a weekend?
The peak is a Wednesday night.
Yeah. A Wednesday night.
Yeah, and I extend the invitation to all that are still listening. One way or another, I think both Texas and Oklahoma have been open for some time. We plan on being cautious and just kind of spending our times around each other to minimize our risk. But we're gonna go down and enjoy the night sky. I think I registered for all 9 days. I think it's like the 1st through the 9th, and I registered for all 9 days. So it'll be a real vacation, and the goal is to see it first, and then hopefully my equipment works. But if not, I'll at least have seen it, and hopefully it doesn't soak out the whole time.
Yeah, Adrian, if I head down there I'll be taking my 14-inch stop with me as well, my imaging system. So
the Perseids are already starting
That'll
now,
work.
by the way. The Perseids are right now starting, and they're
Yes,
going to get
that's
to a
what-
peak. But
That's what we were talking about during In the Sky. Yes.
Yeah, you got a lot
Already
of time with the
done.
Perseids. 2 days before the Perseids, 3 days after the Perseids, gonna be fantastic. So you start seeing them right now coming out of that radiant.
I think Sunday night might be clear then, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michigan?
Quick little story before we close up. The Perseids paid me $100. I took a Milky Way shot, had what appears to be a Perseid shooting through the shot, and it made a calendar at my job, and it was $100 prize.
How about that?
I love the Perseids.
Good for you.
Go
Great.
see the Perseids.
You betcha. Take care, everybody.
All right, y'all. Have a good night. We'll see y'all at the discussion group or at virtual Cranbrook. Take care.
Let me know if you come with us, Doug.
Brian.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Brian.
See you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye-bye.
See you, host.